I pull into my driveway, my car rolling to a smooth stop as I exhale the day's tension. After a long week presiding over cases, many involving overzealous HOA boards abusing their power, there's nothing I want more than to kick back on my porch with a cold drink. My home is my sanctuary. A sprawling yet modestly designed house. It sits on the edge of Willow Ridge Estates, one of those so-called exclusive communities where the homes are big, the fences are high, and the HOA rules are written like commandments. I moved in years ago, knowing full well the kind of neighborhood I was entering. As a black man in a predominantly white, affluent suburb, I expected the occasional side-eye from neighbors. What I didn't expect was how deep the entitlement ran. At first, it was little things, my grass being too green, my car too nice, my very presence somehow unsettling to the old guard of the HOA. I could always feel their eyes on me, especially from one house in particular, Susan Whitmore's. Susan, the self-appointed queen of Willow Ridge Estates, is the HOA president. She's the kind of woman who thrives on power, always the first to call a special meeting, always clutching a clipboard, her frosted blonde bob practically vibrating with the thrill of enforcing rules. She never liked me, and she never made a secret of it. Still, I followed the rules, paid my dues, kept my lawn immaculate. I gave them nothing to complain about. So when I see the letter taped to my front door, something in my gut tightens. I step out of my car, the evening air thick with the scent of cut grass and honeysuckle. My fingers close around the envelope, peeling it off the door. Urgent notice is stamped across the top in bold red letters. My name is nowhere on it. I unfold the paper, scanning the text. This property has been deemed abandoned per HOA regulations and has been scheduled for sale. New ownership has been established. Any remaining belongings will be removed at the owner's expense. Further inquiries should be directed to the Willow Ridge HOA board. I stare at the letter, my brain short-circuiting for a moment. Abandoned? Scheduled for sale? I live here. This is my home. A prickle of unease slides down my spine, but then I remember who I am. My pulse steadies. I inhale slowly, exhale deliberately. They don't know. They have no idea that I'm Judge Malcolm Wright, the same judge who has ruled against HOA boards for their illegal overreach, the same judge who has shut down corrupt HOAs time and time again. And they just sold my house. A slow, dark smile spreads across my lips. Susan Whitmore and her little HOA goons have no idea what they've just done. This is going to be fun. The next morning, I wake up early, still gripping the absurdity of last night's notice. Maybe it was a clerical error, a mistake, an oversight. But deep down, I know better. I sip my coffee on the porch, watching the neighborhood come to life. Joggers in their overpriced athleisure. A woman walking a golden retriever. Sprinklers clicking rhythmically in the distance. Everything looks normal, but I can feel the shift. Something is off. Movement at the end of my driveway catches my attention. A golf cart, one of those HOA-issued patrol carts, whirs down the sidewalk. Behind the wheel, in her usual crisp pastel blazer, is Susan Whitmore. She sees me. Her lips press into a thin line, her knuckles tightening on the steering wheel. Then, just as quickly, her face resets into that saccharine, I own this neighborhood smile. I step down from the porch as she pulls up. Morning, Judge Wright, she chirps, too sweet, too fake. Morning, Susan. I fold my arms. Nice of you to stop by. She adjusts her oversized pearl necklace, pretending to admire the flowers in my yard. I was just checking in on this property. This property. Not your home. I tilt my head. You mean my home? Her smile doesn't falter, but I see the flicker in her eyes, the thrill of a power move. Oh, Judge Wright, I was so sorry to hear about the confusion. You should have received the official notice by now. We followed all proper HOA procedures. The sale is already underway. She says it casually, like we're discussing the weather. Like this isn't my house. I let the silence hang. Make her uncomfortable. Her fingers twitch. You see, she continues, according to HOA regulations, any property left unoccupied for more than 60 days can be classified as abandoned. And, well, with your work schedule.
Ah,
There it is. She's been waiting for this. She thinks because I'm a single black man with a demanding career, I'm somehow less present. That my home, my investment, is up for grabs. I stay calm. I never left for 60 days. You know that. She gives a condescending chuckle. Oh, I understand it must be frustrating. But rules are rules. Once an HOA-sanctioned sale begins, it's final. She thinks she's already won. That she can bully me into walking away. I step closer. Not aggressive. Just enough to remind her that I am not a man to be played with. Susan, I say, voice low and even. I hope, for your sake, that you followed every letter of the law. For the first time, doubt flickers in her eyes. Oh, we always follow the rules, she says, but her voice is a little too high, a little too forced. I smile. Good. Because I'm about to dismantle everything she thinks she knows about power. I don't waste time. The moment Susan drives off in her little HOA golf cart, I head inside and start pulling up my records. Mortgage statements, property tax payments, security footage from my doorbell camera. Anything that proves beyond a doubt that I never abandoned my home. But something gnaws at me. HOAs have rules, sure, but selling someone's home without a court order? That's not just an overreach. That's fraud. I need to see exactly what these people have done. The HOA office. The Willow Ridge HOA office is housed in an upscale clubhouse at the center of the community. It's meant to be welcoming, but it always had the air of an exclusive country club, where people like me are tolerated, but never fully accepted. The receptionist, a young woman with wary eyes, looks up as I step inside. I need to see the sale documents for my home, I say, keeping my voice steady. Her smile is tight. Oh, I'm not sure if I can. Before she can finish, a door swings open, and there she is. Susan Whitmore. She looks surprised to see me, but just as quickly, her expression hardens. Judge Wright. What a surprise. I want to see the paperwork, I say. She folds her arms. I'm afraid that information is confidential. I let out a sharp laugh. Confidential? Susan, you sold my house. She sighs, her fake concern barely masking her smugness. As I explained, your property met the criteria for abandonment. The board followed the correct procedures. I narrow my eyes. Then you won't mind showing me the documentation. She hesitates. Just for a fraction of a second.
gotcha.
I press forward. Unless, of course, you didn't follow the law. Because, Susan, I know the law. And I know that an HOA cannot legally seize and sell a home without a court's approval. She stiffens. We had approval. From who? I challenge. Her lips purse. From the HOA's legal advisor. I take a step closer, lowering my voice. Susan, you and I both know that's not how this works. She squares her shoulders. If you have concerns, you're welcome to take it up with the new owner. I freeze. The new owner? She smirks.
Oh, yes.
The sale closed just this morning. My blood runs cold. You can't be serious. She tilts her head, pretending to be sympathetic. I understand this is difficult for you, Judge Wright, but the board has made its decision. I clench my jaw, forcing myself to remain calm. I won't give her the satisfaction of seeing me lose my temper. I need to regroup. A shocking discovery. Back home, I make calls. First to my real estate attorney, then to a friend in the county clerk's office. What I uncover makes my stomach turn. The HOA never filed any legal paperwork with the courts. No foreclosure notice. No legitimate sale approval. The entire thing was done under the table. And the buyer? A shell company. A corporation with no listed owner. But I'm not stupid. I know exactly who's behind it. Susan Whitmore just tried to steal my home. And now, I'm going to burn her entire operation to the ground. The HOA holds its meetings in the clubhouse every Wednesday evening.
Tonight, it's packed.
Residents sit in neat rows, murmuring amongst themselves, while the board members perch at a long table in front, looking self-important. And, at the center, Susan Whitmore. She looks pleased with herself, lips pursed in a smug little smirk. She thinks tonight is just another victory lap, another display of her unchecked power. She has no idea what's coming. I stride in, my presence causing a ripple of whispers. Some people glance at me with curiosity. Others, especially the ones who've lived here long enough to understand the racial dynamics at play, exchange nervous looks. Susan sees me, and her expression barely flickers. "Judge Wright," she says smoothly. "I'm afraid this meeting is for HOA members only." I give her a slow smile. "I am an HOA member. At least I was, before you illegally sold my home." A few gasps. Someone whispers, "What?" Susan's smirk doesn't falter. "I told you. The board followed all proper procedures. If you have complaints, you're welcome to file a dispute with the HOA. "Not necessary," I say, "because I'm here to make sure everyone understands exactly what you did." She folds her arms, pretending to be bored. "If you're here to make baseless accusations." I cut her off. The HOA never had the legal authority to sell my home. The room goes silent. Susan's jaw tightens. "That's not true." I pull a folder from my briefcase and slap it onto the table. "Here are the county records. No foreclosure notice was ever filed. No court approval. That means the sale was completely illegal." A murmur spreads through the crowd. Susan stiffens, but she recovers quickly. "Judge Wright, with all due respect, you may know the law, but you clearly don't understand HOA regulations. The board has full authority to reclaim abandoned properties." "Abandoned?" I scoff. "I have proof I was living there. Security footage, mortgage payments, utility bills. But you deliberately ignored that because you wanted me out." More murmurs. A couple of homeowners shoot uneasy glances at Susan. She glares at me now. Even if that were the case, the sale has already gone through. The home belongs to a new owner. "Right," I say, leaning forward. "A shell company. That gets people's attention." Susan blinks. I slap another document onto the table. "I had an investigator look into the buyer. Turns out, the shell company is linked to your husband's real estate firm." Dead silence. Susan's face goes ghost white. Someone in the crowd mutters, "Oh my God." "That's right." I continue, my voice razor sharp. "You didn't just sell my home. You tried to steal it so you could flip it for a profit." Susan opens her mouth, but no words come out. I let the silence stretch. Let the weight of her corruption sink in. Then I deliver the final blow. "I've already contacted the county. The fraudulent sale is being reversed. And as for you, Susan?" I smile coldly. "You just committed real estate fraud. Expect a lawsuit. And criminal charges." Her mouth moves soundlessly. The board members exchange panicked looks. The room erupts. The clubhouse explodes into chaos. Neighbors murmur, some in shock, others in quiet satisfaction. A few turn to Susan, waiting for her to explain herself. But for the first time, she's at a loss for words. Her perfect composure cracks just a little. I step forward, my voice slicing through the noise. "Susan Whitmore has been using her position to manipulate HOA rules for personal gain. She illegally seized my home, funneled it through a shell company, and attempted to sell it under the table to her own husband's firm." More gasps. A man in the front row leans forward. "Is that true, Susan?" Susan's face goes tight, but she forces out a scoff. "This is absurd. You don't have proof of any of this." I chuckle, shaking my head. "You really don't know who you messed with, do you?" I reach into my briefcase and pull out a USB drive. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a little look at the truth, shall we?" A board member, a nervous-looking man who suddenly realizes he's on the wrong side of history, rushes to connect the USB to the clubhouse's projector. A few seconds later, the screen flickers to life. Then the footage plays. The smoking gun. It's a clip from a security camera, mine. Susan stands on my porch, clipboard in hand, speaking to a man in a dark suit. "Susan, he works too much. He's never home." "Man, you sure about this?" "It's a serious move." "Susan, I'm sure. We'll declare it abandoned, push the sale through, and by the time he realizes, it'll be too late." The room collectively inhales. The clip continues. Susan, my husband will handle the paperwork. No one will question it. Besides, he doesn't belong here anyway. My jaw tightens. There it is. The mask finally slips. She didn't just want my home. She wanted me gone. The murmurs swell into outrage. Oh my God. She planned it. She said, he doesn't belong here. Susan pales. Her head jerks toward the exit, like a trapped animal looking for a way out. Lies, she blurts. That could be anyone. That's not. But before she can scramble for another excuse, another voice rings out. That's enough, Susan. The room turns. Standing at the back of the clubhouse is a man in a dark suit, County Commissioner James Holloway.
And he looks pissed.
The collapse of Susan Whitmore. Susan's entire demeanor shifts. Gone is the self-assured queen of the HOA. Now, she's just a cornered fraud, her carefully built empire crumbling before her eyes. See Commissioner, she stammers. He strides to the front, expression like stone. Judge Wright informed me of his suspicions earlier today. I had my office pull records on every HOA-sanctioned sale in this neighborhood for the past 5 years. He glares at her. Imagine my surprise when I found a pattern of properties mysteriously being abandoned and then sold to your husband's firm. A ripple of disgust spreads through the crowd. You've stolen homes? A woman in the second row hisses. Susan's breathing is fast and shallow. And no, this is being misinterpreted. Save it. Commissioner Holloway pulls out a folder. I have enough evidence to launch a full investigation. And trust me, Susan, this is criminal. She shakes her head violently. No, this is a misunderstanding. I did nothing wrong. I was helping this community. I fold my arms. By driving out people you didn't think belonged here? Her eyes flash with desperation. You don't understand, Judge Wright. This neighborhood has standards. We have to maintain the integrity. That's enough. Holloway's voice is ice. You're finished, Susan. Her face contorts, switching from panic to rage. You think you can do this to me? I built this neighborhood. She spins toward the board members, expecting loyalty. Say something. I protected you. We run this community. But none of them meet her gaze. Even her most loyal allies are distancing themselves now. She realizes it too late. She's alone. The final blow. The commissioner nods at a figure near the door. A uniformed officer steps forward, hand resting on his cuffs. Mrs. Whitmore, the officer says. We need you to come with us. Susan reels back. You can't, this is. Her gaze darts wildly around the room, searching for someone, anyone, to save her. But all she finds are cold, disappointed stares. The officer steps closer. Ma'am, you're under investigation for real estate fraud, discrimination, and unlawful property seizure. Her mouth opens and closes. Then, in a final act of desperation, she lunges for the exit. But the officer catches her arm, spinning her around with ease.
Click.
The sound of handcuffs snapping into place. A collective hush falls over the room. Susan Whitmore, the untouchable queen of Willow Ridge Estates, stands there, wrists bound, her face twisted in disbelief. I take a slow breath, then step forward until I'm inches from her. I lower my voice. Just for her. You should have read the fine print, Susan. She glares at me, pure venom in her eyes. But it doesn't matter anymore. She lost. The next morning, Susan Whitmore's face is plastered across every local news channel. HOA President arrested for fraud. Massive scandal unfolds in exclusive neighborhood. The footage plays on a loop. Susan, her perfect composure shattered, being led out of the clubhouse in handcuffs. Her expensive heels scrape against the pavement as she's shoved into the back of a police car. The story spreads like wildfire. More homeowners come forward, revealing that their properties had been mysteriously flagged for violations they never received notices for. Several former residents, people who'd been forced out over the years, step up with similar stories of unlawful seizures. By noon, the county commissioner announces a full-scale investigation. And by nightfall, Susan's husband, the one who'd been flipping stolen homes, lawyers up. His real estate firm is exposed for its involvement, and within days, his business is in freefall. Their empire collapses overnight. The reckoning. A week later, I sit on my porch, sipping coffee. The sky is a perfect shade of blue. My house, the one they tried to steal, is still mine. And for the first time in weeks, the neighborhood feels different. Quieter. Lighter. There's no more Susan Whitmore lurking around. No more passive-aggressive violation notices stuffed in mailboxes. Just peace. A knock at my fence pulls me from my thoughts. I turn to see an older black couple, Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds, longtime residents who've always kept to themselves. I just wanted to say, Mr. Reynolds clears his throat. Thank you, Judge Wright, for what you did. I nod. It was the right thing. Mrs. Reynolds sighs, shaking her head. We've lived here for over 20 years, and that woman made us feel like outsiders in our own home. She looks up at me, eyes shining. But you stood up to her. And you won. A lump forms in my throat. Because I know this wasn't just about me. It was about all of us. I shake Mr. Reynolds' hand firmly. We belong here just as much as anyone else. And now, finally, the neighborhood knows it too. The fall of Susan Whitmore. Susan resigns from the HOA in disgrace. But it doesn't matter. The damage is done. Her reputation is in ruins. Her finances? Decimated. The lawsuits pile up, wrongful evictions, racial discrimination claims, fraud. Her bank accounts are frozen, her assets seized. The last I hear, she's trying to sell her home, her own mansion, but no one in town will touch it. Poetic justice. A new beginning. A month later, the HOA board holds an emergency election. For the first time in years, the neighborhood chooses real leaders, people who actually care about the community. And as I walk past the clubhouse that evening, I see something I never thought I'd witness. Neighbors, black, white, Latino, Asian, all standing together, talking, laughing. The invisible lines Susan tried so hard to enforce?
Gone.
I exhale, feeling something shift deep inside me. Susan thought she ran this neighborhood. Thought she could rewrite the rules, erase the people she didn't approve of. But she underestimated the most important thing.
Justice.
And justice always wins.